It's Matt. It's a Wednesday. It's Restaurant Expert Roundup. I got Deuce today. I got this one with my man Fred, moved from last Friday because of my internet connection. We'll be back in a second to talk systems, checklists, processes, all that great restaurant stuff. So, Fred, welcome to the show. A little belated from Friday. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. That's what happens when you're in the trenches.
Traveling the world. So tell everybody out there who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Fred Langley. I'm the CEO at Restaurant Systems Pro, and we help restaurants increase profit and get their time back through systems and processes. We have not only the coaching to go along with it, but we give you the software tools to execute.
I love it. And yeah. I come from the boat business before this. I've been in marketing since 99, but we had a 9-year stint where we owned a boat and RV dealership. We started from scratch. And the one thing that I saw a lot of in the boat business, because you have complex motors and you have complex, you have $100,000 in parts in stock at any time. You had systems, you had inventories, you had these different controls. And the more I get into the restaurant business, I'm just amazed the number of restaurants that don't have this stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. They think it's kind of a people have that when they start a restaurant, they're kind of artistic, and they're used to cook. They want to cook and serve people and make them feel good, and those are all really important ingredients to a great restaurant. But you have to be profitable too, and you have a responsibility to be profitable. And a lot of times people are always they're not taking care of their restaurant first. They're making sure everybody else is taken care of before them. And one of the lessons I like to pass along is, think about when you're in a plane. And the emergency talk before the pre-flight emergency talk, right? And if you're with a small child, right, they tell you to put the gas mask on yourself first, which seems selfish. It seems like, well, no, I'm going to take care of a 5-year-old child before I take care of myself. I'm going to put the child before me. But if you pass out, you cannot take care of the child. And so you have to think of your restaurant the same way. You have to take care of yourself and the business first so that it can be there to take care of your employees and be there for the community and enrich their lives and change lives.
It's almost like you have a camera into my office. So today I was working on this and I call it my levers. What are the things I can do? Because one thing I don't say struggle with, but I've got to grasp is as the CEO, I'm not involved in our business anymore. Besides doing podcasts and doing interviews and occasionally go on the road, I don't actually work in the business anymore. And so the one thing I've had to adapt to is, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? I call it levers. What levers can I pull to increase our business or to help my team? And the first lever I have on this list is me. And I've got on there unbreakable mind, body, and spirit. How do I keep making myself stronger mind, stronger body, stronger spirit? And I think a lot of times small business owners put yourself the last. You're the last person to get paid. You're the last person to be taken care of. And like you said with the mask, if you're not top of the game, if you don't have your shit together, then you're in a tough place when it hits the fan.
Yeah, you won't be able to take care of everybody. And a lot of people learned that in the pandemic. When they wanted to be taking care of their employees and their community, they couldn't do it. Yeah. And I found that a lot of my customers were able to. Most of my customers were able to. They were able to do great things in the community. They were able to pivot really quickly and take care of their employees and I was able to do the same thing. I was able to take care of my employees and keep them all employed through it and power through.
So let's talk about a few of these things here. So training systems. Talk about the types of training systems that you've seen help restaurants over these past couple of years, and what a lot of restaurants are ignoring that they need to be looking at when it comes to training systems.
It's funny. I mean, a lot of you have probably seen my training systems ads that run. We're really, hitting the market hard on it. And if you're a restaurateur, I'd be surprised if you haven't seen it, to be honest. What happens with that is it's a relationship builder for us. And I know that I'm hitting the right chord when I have the haters start coming out on my ads. I'm sure you feel it too. It's like, oh, I don't need your marketing. I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need help with this,
I don't even have a sign. Word of mouth.
Yeah. And so, as people say, like training and books, like, it's like, I love when they say, who needs a book? And it's like, well, I think books are pretty pretty valuable and awesome, to be honest. And there's a lot of knowledge in there, and people put their best effort into books. And they're giving you the best of themselves when you read a book, right? The amount of energy that's poured into it. But our training manuals are it doesn't replace like side-by-side training with somebody. And it's not like you're sitting there making your burger and reading it like, oh, let me check the book, on how to make this burger. It's more of a guidelines and a line in the sand on what your expectations are, how you're going to follow through, what the job is, how well it should be done, when it should be done by. And that creates happier employees. When they have clear goals and they know exactly what success looks like through checklists and training, they are happier and they're more successful and more likely to complete what you've taught them. When they're left to just create their own job and their own workflows, they get pissed off when you come in and tell them like, hey, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. It's like, well, hell yeah, it is the way I created my own job. And now I've been doing it like this for 6 months. And now you're trying to correct me. What's your problem? And it creates conflict in there. And when there's clear communications and goals, you have happier people. The evidence is in your children. A 5-year-old is happier with structure, than they are with not knowing what to expect every day. When they know what to expect every day, they know when dinner is, they know when they're, whatever it is, they are more well-behaved and happier and more fulfilled,
Yeah. And it all comes back to the leader as well. One thing I struggle with is that when something happens wrong in our business, I've kind of got this mantra that I stole from a guy named Ed Milet, years ago. He said, when something goes wrong, when an employee in your mind, when an employee that in your mind or some did something wrong, stop and look in the mirror, because there's a pretty damn good chance that you didn't start the process right or spell it out. And what I've found is that as myself as an entrepreneur, and I hear this a lot from restaurateurs, everything that we've got everybody doing, we've done completely. Like I've done everything in my entire business. Like there's 53 people on our payroll, 54 in a couple hours, hopefully, if she says yes. If you're watching, hopefully you say yes. But I found that I've done all their jobs. I've filmed, I've edited, I've built marketing programs, Facebook ads, everything. And so I know what the hell to do. And a lot of times we don't write it down. And we don't write it down. We don't put it like we use Kajabi. We have a membership site for our employees. We have things written down. We have in Asana, Loom videos, PDFs, so that we can make sure that we put that thing in place. Because as the restaurant owner, that
tools at your disposal, there's really no excuse anymore.
Yeah. Oh, especially 2022. I could see 30 years ago, you might be able to say, oh, it's really expensive to have these online things. I remember we had to get a new PO. We had to get a new POS when we were at our boat dealership, and it was $75,000 for the server. Nowadays it's in the cloud. But yeah, you're exactly right there. So on to the next thing. This is what cracks me up even more though, is there's two things I hear a lot in the restaurant space. And it comes down to understanding inventory and understanding the cost of the inventory that's going into that final product. So what is it that you see restaurants could really improve on when it comes to inventory? Is because I had a restaurant the other day tell me she inventories every 2 weeks. I thought, man, that seems like a lot of gray area where something can go wrong.
Yeah. In fact, if I'm doing consulting and somebody says, hey, you're gonna come in and consult, which I don't do consulting anymore. Chef Gino handles all of our consulting for us now. But if we were to come in as a company to consult and somebody goes, hey, all this stuff looks great, but we're just not going to do inventory, we'll say, well, I'm sorry, I cannot help you, because you have no vision over your numbers. You have no vision over your usage. Inventory is not just for looking to see what's on my shelves so I can place an order. One, you have a value of product that's sitting there. But two, then we have this usage of product that we need to calculate. And we call it usage. The rest of the world calls it cost of goods sold. Yep. We make sure that we call it usage because we hope that we sold it, but it could have been wasted, stolen, spoiled, overportioned, you name it. And so many people get caught up because they don't it's a math equation that's this enigma, and it's something that's only for my accountant, and they want the beginning of the month and end of the month for my books, and that's all I really need it for. When the reality is that if I have the data that tells me exactly how much chicken breast I use, meaning I had, or let's use bottles of wine, it's a little bit easier mouth. I have 12 bottles of wine on Monday morning on my shelf, right? Okay. And then I buy 2 cases, so I add 24 bottles. Well, now I have not 24 bottles available to sell. I have 36 bottles available to sell, right? And then I get to the end of the week and there's 6 bottles sitting there on the shelf. Well, I did not use those bottles, right? So beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending inventory, I have 12 plus the 24 I bought is 36, minus the 6. I used 30 bottles of wine. Now, I don't say I sold them. I hope I sold them. Now my POS data comes in and it says that I sold 28 bottles of wine. Now there's 2 bottles missing, right? I know I used, they're gone from my shelf there, whether they were stolen, whatever happened to them. Maybe they, hopefully on the waste sheet, maybe somebody dropped them. We got to be able to track and know where they're at. And the software automates all of this for you. Too. You still have to do the hard work of setting it up and getting there. But just like our training systems are kind of a lead magnet for those. I mean, maybe restaurants don't know what that is. I know you know what it is.
Yep.
But if somebody buys my manuals, it's there. But in my software, it's all videos and all those in checklists. And I got to check for understanding. We make it all easier to execute. So
yeah, I remember
things but you have to do them.
I remember we had our boat dealership and we had a fishing tackle department, and I was in my early 20s, mid 20s when we were running at our peak. We were doing 15 million a year in sales. Had this fishing department that did about $100,000 a year in sales. And it was really in about 8 months because, in Kentucky in the middle of the winter, not buying many fishing lures. And I remember going up there, I had a company come in and we started doing this inventory. And the guy that I had promoted to run the fishing department, we didn't train him. He was a fisherman. He knew he knew product, he knew fishing. It never occurred to me back then that he didn't know how much he should have on the shelf, and we didn't have systems in place, and we started to put them in place. And I'll never forget the first time we did inventory, he had $120,000 in inventory sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
And we could get this stuff instantly. There was literally no incentive to have it on hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Gary, you realize like we want to have turns, like inventory turns, 4 turns in this 8 months. What's that mean? And I explained it to him, and he's like, oh shit, that means we need to sell $500,000 in inventory based on what I have, and we aren't. And I'm like, exactly. And it was, it came down to us just not having the system in place and, telling it to the employee.
Here's a quick tip for restaurant owners. You just talked about inventory turns, right? So you have this retail, you talked about 4 turns in 8 months, which means that you would totally empty your shelves if you didn't buy any product at all in 2 months, if you did 4 turns in 8 months. Well, for a restaurant, what we're looking for, our ideal turns is going to be 1 turn a week. And if you think about it, you have all of this perishable product. So I started having more than 7 days of food on my shelf, and that is, we have the chance that it's spoiled. It's more waste. The product is not as fresh. Your product isn't as good. You got a bunch in the freezer. Your dry storage is good. Then you have Parkinson principle that comes into play, which is when the demand upon a resource will expand with its growth. That can be compared to like a tube of toothpaste. You use more toothpaste in a full tube of toothpaste than you do when it gets to the end. And it's not that you can't afford more toothpaste, but if you have too much of a product, your team will overuse it. So the amount of inventory you should have should equal to the amount of purchases you do in a week. That's a good rule of thumb for anybody right there. You can do it easy. You don't need software to tell you that.
And it reminds me of what I heard somebody say the other day when they were starting up a company that, it was actually one of the guys from Shark Tank, Mark Cuban. He's like, sometimes a bunch of money early on in a small business is a bad thing. It's a kiss of death because you will use what you have versus bootstrapping it. In the same way though, you're right. If the employees see 50 of these items versus 5, and you're going to use 5 all week and there's 50, like, oh, we got plenty of them. So
we do the same thing with our systems. So there's Dave Ramsey, right? God's and grandma's way of managing personal finance, right? And he tells you to put the cash in the envelope. So that's all there is, right? No matter what, all the cash in the envelope is there. Well, I can't give a kitchen manager $10,000 in an envelope, right? So the software manages that for you and gives you exactly how much you're supposed to spend. It compares to what you're spending, and they proactively control their dollars before they spend it. And they can't go outside of those parameters without talking to you, the owner. And it allows you to delegate your checkbook without giving up control.
Okay. Now,
It allows you to give up control. It allows you to give up control while still maintaining control, right?
Okay.
Because there's a system and a parameter they can operate with it.
So last question, you mentioned something that caught my attention there a minute ago, usage versus cost of goods. That
right.
There's a lot of restaurants probably that are saying, hey, we have a cost of goods last week of $10,000 on these bottles of wine.
Yep.
But if you look at the point of sale, they really only sold what would be maybe $8,000, because who knows where the other $4,000 or $2,000 went to, whether it was dropped or whether it was used for another purpose and not managed, or whether it was stolen. Mm-hmm. Do you find that a lot of restaurants are managing based off of cost of goods versus usage?
Yeah, and so that is a mindset. The calculation's the same. We call it usage because it's a mindset of it.
Yeah.
I hope that I sold it, but no matter what, it left my shelves and it's gone, right? What's happening big time right now is, and my clients, they know their ideal usage. So they know the difference between their cost of goods sold going up because of inflation or because it's a lack of using the product carefully. And what is happening is, they're able to adjust their targets because of inflation and control pricing to battle inflation in the right way because they have all the data at their hands. Everybody else in the world is just looking at their cost of goods sold going up or usage going up and going, oh, well, inflation's hitting my restaurant, when really there's a lot of times a 3 to 9 point gap between ideal and the actual cost of goods sold calculation. And if I can close that gap by using my product better with better processes and systems and purchasing and par levels and knowing where my inventory should be and all of those things, then I'm going to have a much better competitive advantage against the rest of the restaurant world.
I love it.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time today. Is this the best place people can find you?
People can find us there. I do have a special offer today if they want to mention 60 days with us. Just you can email me at fred@restaurantsystemspro, mention the 60 days. I'm doing a 60-day onboarding. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is I'm giving my time, I'm training my time. And I'm a restaurant expert, right? And I understand restaurants to a T, but I find myself the CEO of a software company today. So because of that, I've gotten coaching and consulting on running a software business because I'm a chef restaurateur, right? And in this software business, I'm going and I'm nervous and I'm like, because if somebody leaves my software, my heart is broken. And it leaves me, because I know the potential. I know how much money's on the table. I know what's there. And a lot of times it's like breaking up with their girlfriend. Hey, Fred, it's not you, it's me. I can't get my managers to do it. I can't, all that. So I go in and I'm going in to learn about being a software CEO. So I'm in a room of 50 software CEOs and we're talking churn. And churn is the rate at which you lose customers in the software business, right? Or any membership, sort of, even for you have churn and all that. And we want to keep that. We want to be serving our clients well, and we want them to be lifetime customers, right? And so we're going to serve them at our peak. And so I'm super nervous about going in, and the consultant gets on stage and he's talking about, he's like, I want you to be at an industry standard of 5%. And I'm like, crap, I just calculated mine. I'm at 8%. What the heck? And so then he starts explaining more and he's going through the whole thing. And I start to realize he's talking about 5% per month. And I'm like, I'm 8% per year. So where I thought I was the worst of everybody, I'm actually, 8% over 12 months. I'm like less than 1% churn in it. And then I start learning these metrics and I find out that my average client, my average customer has been with me 11 years. Okay. And so that's average. That means for every person that's been with me 5, I have somebody that's been with me 16. So what that did is it gave me the courage to give away what I'm doing for 60 days. Okay. Because I have such great lifetime stick, and it's me putting my money where my mouth is. And so I am going to be charging October, but if anybody mentions it from you, I'll let them in for free for starting October 5th, and they'll get everything that I have. And I'm training every single day. I have 2 groups going right now. I taught for 2 hours this morning. I'm teaching for 2 hours in the afternoon. I'm doing it every single day for 60 days. It'll be like straight up consulting for nothing. And awesome. I'm having a huge success with it and really serving the industry well with it.
I love it. We had the email up there. If you want to see that email, you can check it out on the recording. It's also, we'll put it in the notes as well. Wherever you watch this, it'll be down in the description. Fred, appreciate your time today.
Thank you, man. Take care.